The HiPipo Chronicles. So we are getting into 2006. So we talked about 2005 and we talked about the inception of HiPipo between media, that is of 2005, around July. And we wrapped up the year when there were plans that were being made to try and program into creating email to SMS. And we had talked about how that made a twist because you thought it was going to take a short time. And that didn't end up panning the way it was supposed to be. So the HiPipo Chronicles, this is 2006 that we are into right now. And we are with the CEO at HiPipo, Innocent Kawooya. How is everything going for you before we get into 2006?
Well, you usually say nice and Chris.
Yeah.
I've heard you say that a lot, man. Yeah. And everything is really going on so well. I usually tell people my life is made of God. Yeah. So it's the simplest way I can.
You shouldn't have a problem with life at all. If someone says, "How are you doing?" Yeah, why should I be here?
Yeah, definitely. Whether it's, what is most funny about life?
Yeah.
That even in times of challenges,
there
is goodness on the other side of it.
You can always look at them as lessons that you probably pick from and then move on to the next.
Yeah.
So don't look at challenges like a bad thing. Always, okay?
Yes.
Lesson to learn, and then maybe next time you'll handle that better. So we talked about 2005 when we are wrapping up the previous episodes. Talked about 2005. You're looking at programming, learning more about that. One thing I wanted to get into as we get in 2006, programming is something that has to be done consistently. You have to have facilities to enable you to do that. So 2006, how frequently were you accessing a computer to be able to even further your skills in programming? And how much time were you dedicating to that in a week because you are still studying at the same time?
Yeah, well, thank you, Mark. Well, from my side, I was rising in terms of privilege. I had been voted again as head boy in my high school. So I had more chances of getting out of school every weekend.
Yes.
So most times it was almost every Saturday and Sunday, I am home catching up with a big team that was about to change the world. Of course, writing so many scripts, wanting to do something that would supersede the MySpaces of the world, the high fives that crashed away from our ecosystem. I mean, other things were happening in the world. People were developing other social networking platforms. And well, the journey, like we said in the previous episodes, now starts to become real. I'm sure you heard about the sayings of static website and dynamic website.
Yes.
Do you remember?
Yes.
So one is database driven. The other is just static in a way that everything, you create a page with visuals, add some elements like images and all that, and then you have.
And that's all you can do.
Yeah.
On that website.
Yeah. And then we shall talk about Flash later in time. Myself, I was more of a programming observer, because I knew most of the things that would make sense to people my age and maybe people who are about 4 years older than me. But I wasn't good. I only knew a little bit of HTML. I could create a body, create some bit of CSS, so do some hovers and all that kind of stuff. But John Mark was very intentional about creating a lot of work. So he was dedicating a lot of time lecturing in Makerere by that time, doing some other work. I think he was in Bank of Uganda by that time, and then also making sure that he has a job to do at HiPipo. Something that we were even not yet so sure about whether it should be called HiPipo. So he is doing this kind of work, and so many times every Friday, Saturday and Sunday, when I come home, I get time to stand behind him as it's
and just spy.
Spy as he's doing the code.
Yes.
I'm like, oh, that is PHP. I have to ask him questions. So what is PHP? It's a server-side language.
Yes.
So it helps us create something that unites our databases, create the MySQLs of this world.
Yes.
At some point in time, I, for the first time, heard of something called Oracle. I'm like, oh, wait a minute. I am going to be, so whenever I'm back at school, I'm talking MySQL, PHP, CSS.
But when you said CSS, when you said HTML.
Yeah. I was saying that thing. So that's where 2006 for me starts.
Yeah, but then how often, did you have access to computer at that time?
Well, myself, I could access a computer at Makerere whenever I come back.
Yes.
But I mean, on Saturday, you'll take some hours coming from Namagoma. So you end up reaching at about 4 or 5. Then stay in the lab up to 10 in the night, learning things. Of course, whenever it was going to late in the night, people could use computers, leave a lot of screens with pornography. So, I mean, people watching.
People didn't know how to clear the browser history.
They don't know how to clear the browser history. So, and then some people run away as the supervisor comes in the lab. So, they leave, some have been watching football. I mean, the watching was literally not watching. They're checking out pictures, pages that were black. Most of the pages then were black. Either they are black or navy blue or something. A few were red. A few teams were red. So they're checking out that content. And it's exciting for someone to just browse. So scroll through. And the computers were Pentium 2s and all that kind of stuff. Yeah.
So slow.
I could get a chance to access a computer for about 8 hours a week.
8 hours a week is quite good though.
Yeah, good stuff, real good stuff.
And you know what is interesting though? We are talking about the HiPipo Chronicles, but what we didn't break down is you talked about even having the idea of changing the name.
Yes.
Where does the part HiPipo come in? How do they put that together? Were you in those conversations also at the time?
Well, I was sneaking into conversations after the deliberations were made several times. So, but I'm sure one time we'll have a chance to have John Mark.
Yes. To
really talk in depth about HiPipo. But the little I know is that HiPipo was a brand that was created to serve people. It was a people-centric brand from its point of inception. That's why the first tagline was "A friend's rendezvous." I mean, everything that has been done over these years for HiPipo rotates around people. So I don't get surprised that actually that's a brand that was chosen at that time when we were still thinking this can be this and other kind of stuff. Yeah.
And I think that when we were closing off the last episode and we were talking about the plans at the time of when you're wrapping up the year, you are looking at creating a way people can, because you are looking at creating a social media platform where people can interact, but it wasn't called social media at the time. So a place where people can interact. That's what you are looking at creating. And you're looking at having email to SMS.
Yes.
So as the year is, as you're wrapping up the year with plans of that, talk to me in 2006. I'm sure you are sure that this is going to be happening in 2006 as you're closing off the year. What happens with that plan?
Well, social networks was the thing. So social media came in as a child of the transformative capacity of social networking platforms. But what was thought of as being a spontaneous action and building became a bit harder to run, because even just testing a few scripts, Mark didn't run so many bugs every time and has to clear all of them because we want to have some functionality running. And importantly, we needed to have something that could be a point of creating some bit of guerrilla marketing for the brand, a product that could be used by many people and that could make them tell someone about HiPipo. And that was because in so many ways, we couldn't access a budget any soon to market the brand, apart from accessing printers that were very expensive and print something. But most of what was happening was that, okay, we are going here, but we should get a product that will get us to the world. And see, the biggest challenge then is students in universities found it very hard to communicate. Airtime was very expensive. I'm sure you remember that time.
Pen pal was taking long.
Yeah, some people are even some people are still paying service fee. Those days. So, and then the distribution channels for airtime. I remember seeing so many university students who could not have a single coin. They don't have a phone. They don't have anyone to reach, but they have a number of someone they can SMS to get them something. So all they had to do all the time is get into a space where they can send an SMS. We thought they could, if we can have a capability of someone sending an SMS from the computer that has internet in the university, then we could solve much of the problems of the students who are at the university by then, not in Uganda alone. And the functionality had become a core functionality that should be prioritized in launching the product.
Yeah, and also it would help us the hassle of writing letters to the post, and then, because remember when you're writing a letter, so now, which means you're going to wait probably a week for a response for that letter, and you have to write everything you want a response to in that time. Whereas this function was making sure that the messages are prompt and someone can respond to something immediately, and you don't have to wait for any of that. So with that plan, you have all these plans. What happens? Does the service launch in 2006?
Well, the plan was, first of all, a little bit disturbed by how we could get through different communication gateways. How you are able to channel an email to a mobile number and get it to be accepted as a legal communication. I mean, later we shall talk about the challenges of email to SMS communication. But the platform and the solution was developed. By December 2006, it was close to something you would call a ready solution. You could test and send email to SMS to more than 35 networks around the world. I mean, in Uganda, we only had 3, so you could send to literally everyone around East Africa. And the testing was a little bit slower. Some people we could send to, you had to send them a message and tell them, when you see this, then send me a message to this number so I can know you received it. And some of those messages really felt like ghosts to some people because it had no number it was coming from. Yes. Someone like, wait a minute. And then people who were enjoying relationships and were courting and were planning to marry were some of the beneficiaries, because I remember later in time we shall talk about them, but I remember they were excited about, when we're testing. So part of the testing was getting someone who was going to organize a wedding and get a database of their numbers that they have, and messages, and then help them send and see if the people actually. And they're like, it created a lot of excitement, but we are still off server. We are still on local server and testing and getting things done. The whole year ended without having everything accomplished. Yes. But at least all that you call the database, the main pages that should run on the website, all that you call the information system I wanted to run, was something that could be tested. And it was exciting everyone that was a part of the team every other day. But a year looks very short, but that was a long one. For myself, it was so long because I wanted to come to HiPipo. I wanted to come out of school, I have freedom to test with HiPipo every day of my life. And time wasn't arriving any soon. At some point, I felt like dropping out of school and not completing senior 6. But it wasn't the best option either. Yeah. But what kept the team moving though? Because now you're looking at a future that you're testing, but it's taking you a long time because you literally have to interact with other networks. Yes. So which means you have to get it right. Yes. And what kept the team moving? Because this literally went to an entire year before you were actually online. You are still operating at a local area network. Yes. Well, I believe the team had a great leader that we still have among us as an important advisor and one that gets to watch us when we're doing a lot of things. I believe they were in a space where someone had this real belief and faith in using technology to transform communities and society. And I mean, if you are not believing in the transformative capacity of digitization, then it is even hard to believe in it right now, because there is much less that we are doing using technology to actually change and create opportunities in the world. If only governments today can think about the much that technology can be for us, yes, we would be surprised and amused by the things that can happen. So the leadership, the team had about 7 people then, and they were all computer science students, apart from one who was doing economics, and they were all believing in demonstrating the transformative capacity of the things they had learned. Yes, many of these were the first lot of computer science students in my career, and others were the second slot. So they really wanted to prove a case of what they knew. But it also became a lab for them. It was like an incubation lab for the people, because many of them, even when they had jobs, they were not really good in a position that they could use all the things that they knew, and they had studied in their computer science. So HiPipo was a launchpad for the new ideas, the new code they had learned to do. And I think that was fuel enough to keep moving and be able to develop as us that were juniors were coming in.
But then, so when you're in school, because there's another perspective of you're in school studying, you're supposed to be looking at getting into work, get a white collar job, because that's what we all hope for, get into one of the professions, start working. So at the time when you're getting this time going out, interacting with people that are already in the field working, and they are trying to innovate something, did that have an impact of your mindset while in school, and in order to prepare you for what came ahead?
Well, I had been rearing rabbits when I was 9. I had sold scrap for years.
Yes.
I'm not a businessman, but I was always an entrepreneur. So for myself, it was a flat direction. I felt like God was taking me to the place I want to be. I wanted to innovate. I wanted to be a part of a team that was challenging and was creating things that we have not met anywhere. And I would tell you honestly, I would be lying to say I was inspired to become, because all of them are not in the same space like I am right now. Like honestly, I'm the only one who remained fully as an entrepreneur. The others are entrepreneurs, but they're tagged with other responsibilities somewhere else. But for me, I had seen an opportunity to change lives. I'd seen an opportunity to use our work to reach so many people, billions of people in the world, and I didn't want to let it go. I mean, I had seen myself selling rabbits of 1.5 million when I was 9 years. I'm like, oh, wait a minute. You can actually rear rabbits, start with one, get them to grow, and then get an opportunity to sell them at a very good price. So if I have thousands of them, I'll have billions of money. I had seen that happening in my childhood. And I was seeing that that we were doing was about to make the same kind of impacts, or even more. Why? Because technology, like we see today, then if it was a beautiful girl, today technology is a very, very beautiful AI girl that can become anything.
Anything you want.
Yeah, anything you want.
Which is very interesting. And by the way, on the next episode, we shall talk about, because we started off with 2005. Now we are talking about 2006. But all these years, we are talking about years of you trying and testing things. You are not making a penny from any of this.
Yes.
And you're dedicating time every weekend. And I'm sure the rest of the team is also sacrificing time to create and try and develop this innovation that they are working on, that they are not earning from at all. So later on in the next episode, I think we shall get into what creates the resilience. And when people are innovating, what do they need to know? What do they need to, especially the young people that are joining the field?
Absolutely.
The sacrifices they have to deal with.
Yes.
And I know in the later episodes, we shall talk about that. Yeah. But 2006, how do you wrap up this? Because you have this innovation coming, and as far as creating a place where content can be distributed well, and all that was in plan. But I want to know, how does 2006 end?
Well, 2006 ends with plans to incorporate HiPipo as a limited liability company in London, because part of this conversation had happened overseas.
Yes.
And it ends with one that has been very instrumental to us, that it's been patron to us and a key guide for what we've done, Dr. Fredrick Wamala, accepting to actually be a part of the conversation and support in overseeing part of what was being done, and support in making sure that some structures are put in place. Of course, he had a PhD already by then, so he was a doctor by every description. Yeah. But he was saying, oh, wait a minute, I think this can make a lot of sense. So, but you need guidance. So he got seniors and got them into some bit of what I can call an incubation lab still.
Yes.
And then preparing them to have HiPipo be a brand, be an organization that is incorporated, and then find ways of safeguarding what has been done already by HiPipo.
And that's it, 2006. We wrap that way. Lessons you learned in 2006?
Well, I'll talk about the lessons in the start of the next episode,
which is 2007. So you need to check that out.
Yeah.
So that is the HiPipo Chronicles. We are looking at 2006. So for the next episodes, we are going into looking at what happens in 2007. Does the email to SMS feature finally start operating? Does it go offline to now being accessible to anyone that would want to use the feature at the time? So you stay tuned for that, and that is the next episode of the HiPipo Chronicles. Shout outs to our video guy, the video director, George, is doing that over there, and we shall be on the next one, which is 2007. Get this wherever you get podcasts, and follow HiPipo on all social media platforms. That is HiPipo on all social media platforms, whether Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, all that. Whatever you use, we are there. All right. And podcasts, wherever you get podcasts from, HiPipo Chronicles, you'll get that.